Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney couple Jose Campos and Jessica Crain-Campos about their ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion, with a reception at Salons VI-IX of the Grand Floridian Ballroom and a welcome party at Mexico Vista in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how they chose these locations and how they planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Jessica and Jose.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie. How's it going?
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you guys decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
Well, I grew up in a Disney family, and when me and Jose started dating, I kind of encouraged him to always want to get on a weekend trip just to get out of town, and Disney was always my first choice.
And kind of as a kid, I didn't really stay at any of the resorts. My family would take me to Disney. Often we would go as a kid, but I never really got to experience the resorts. And once Jesse and I started to go to Disney, we got to get the whole Disney kind of experience. So when we were looking at wedding venues down here, I kind of threw the idea of Disney, and Jesse at first thought it might be a little too difficult or costly, but eventually, after continuously looking at venues, I kept looking at her and saying, we're going to end up doing Disney. Just agree to it quicker so that we can start the planning.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
Well, the first instinct was, wow, that's so cool. I would love to see what a Disney wedding is like. It sounds unique. I know from hearing from a lot of my friends and colleagues that there was a lot of whispers of hoping to get invited to experience that. So there was definitely a lot of excitement, a lot of curiosity to see what a Disney wedding would be like. And, just generally everybody was very, very excited about it.
I didn't mention this earlier, but my parents took us to Disney probably 10 times a year, starting from when I was maybe 5 years old up until I was a teenager. We went very often, so they both were very excited as well.
That's great. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
I think we invited around 120, either 120 or 125, and our final guest count was around 95 people. So a vast majority of the people that we invited were able to make it, luckily.
Fantastic. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
Yes, and we wanted to give our guests a couple of price options. So we did select the Music Value Resort as the value resort option. The moderate resort option was Coronado. And I actually grew up going to mostly Coronado, so that was very special. And especially since the new renovation, it's just beautiful. As far as deluxe, we selected the Grand Floridian and the Wilderness Lodge.
That's great. Now, how did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
We picked a Friday, and I believe that was the only time that they had the Wedding Pavilion in the afternoon. We started at 2:30, and I wanted to have our ceremony during the day. I didn't want it to start at night. So that was just the best option then. And it wasn't the middle of the week.
I see. Okay. How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
That was basically looking at, both the price and the available options. I liked the idea of the Wedding Pavilion just because you have the Magic Kingdom castle in the background. We both thought that would look very magical. And the Grand Floridian kind of keeping everything close-knit. We thought about the difficulties of transporting a bunch of people if we selected different locations. And ultimately, we wanted our wedding, some of the venues we were looking in South Florida kind of had a particular theme to it that the Grand Floridian kind of matched, and Jessica can kind of expound upon as to kind of like the theme and vision that she saw for the wedding.
Yeah, so initially I wanted to have an in-park ceremony and reception in EPCOT, but after really thinking about the timing options, because it's either very early in the morning for a ceremony or very late at night, I kind of got away from that idea. And then as far as the reception, I was pushing it up until the last minute. I wanted Italy and EPCOT, but it ended up working out because a ballroom has weather control. You're not going to have the worry of rain. You're not going to have to worry about humidity because, that's an issue in Florida. And it just ended up being the easiest option as far as making sure our day of was flowing properly.
Got it. Okay. Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
So we did use many outside vendors for florals. I picked Bluegrass Chic. For the photography, it was The Roots. Jency and Nate are amazing. Chairs and linens, we selected Caesar Rentals, and we did have a 360 photo booth, and they were called Orlando 360 Shots. And when the last vendor I had was actually our day of coordinator to kind of assist setting up the personal items I brought. I brought a neon sign, and I had a certain little decors that I wanted to bring in as well.
Got it. Okay. And how did you guys choose your officiant?
That was on me. And just to give you some context, we're both lawyers. So I wanted to bring in a couple of judges that are big in both of our fields. And I wanted to reach out to a couple of judges to do the whole thing. But Jessica thought it might be too complicated. I kind of agreed with her. So I ended up looking into the options that Disney provided. We reached out to Kevin Knox, who recommended Dr. Tino Ballesteros. We had a phone interview with him, and he
was very thorough.
Very thorough in our relationship and understanding, how we got to where we are. And, we selected him because he did a pretty good job on that interview.
Okay, great. Now, did you add any kind of entertainment or musicians to the ceremony or the reception?
We had a violinist for the ceremony, which was absolutely super romantic. It gave me the feel that I wanted when I walked down the aisle, and I'm sure my guests felt the same. And as far as the reception, I mentioned we had a 360 photo booth. That was a hit. Everyone was so excited. A lot of people hadn't used one in the past, I think. I've actually seen them at a couple of parties I've been to, and they're super fun because you just get a video of the day and something to remember by. And then I also decided to do something alternative to a guest book. So I got a box that was engraved with our wedding date and the Campos written on the front. And in the box, it had cards for our guests to fill out. It had marriage secrets, must-dos, advice, and some date night ideas. And I really wanted to do something different than a guest book because I didn't think I would look at it as much. So I'm glad I actually did that because I still look at the marriage secrets and must-dos and date night ideas.
That's a great idea. From your reception, do you guys have any menu items or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Well, we did select the vanilla cake and the lemon cream with blueberry filling. So we kind of just did everyone would call it generic or basic, but I like a classic flavor. And I kind of wanted a spring wedding feel because we were married in April. So that's why we selected that. And it tasted amazing. Our guests couldn't stop raving about the cake. It was awesome.
Yeah, I remember the cake being fantastic. We even took some home for sure to have later. And the menu item that comes to mind is more along the lines from the welcome party. There was a pretty good barbecue menu that we went with, but we'll probably talk about that when you talk about the welcome party.
Yeah, let's talk about it. How did you guys decide on Mexico Vista for your welcome party?
Well, the funny story with that is that Jessica initially wanted to do a dessert party. She wanted to do a dessert party immediately after the wedding, but the time details and our budget kind of cut into that. So initially we were going to go without a welcome party, without a dessert party, but I decided to just surprise her I called Karen, who was our event planner, and said, hey, I kind of need you to do me a favor on the side. I want to do a welcome party and I want to do it in Epcot. Unfortunately, the Italy section in Epcot was fully booked, impossible to get. I told her to keep me on standby or a wait list or anything that they could do, but Mexico and Epcot was available. So we went forward with that. And then the longer that I kept the surprise up, I realized how impossible it would be to surprise her with something of that magnitude and all our guests. And I decided to just tell her, which of course she blew up in excitement and happiness because
Yeah.
that was something that she had been talking about for a while and she had already accepted that it wasn't going to happen. And she was very, very, very pleasantly surprised with Epcot. We knew we wanted it to be in Epcot, though.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily do a dessert party, obviously. We did barbecue and it was amazing. All of our guests were happy with the barbecue as well. So we did something a little different, but we made the compromise. I was really happy.
Yeah, and one person in our guest list described it as box seats to the fireworks because you
Yes.
get front row visions. I even had some of my colleagues say that this would be a good idea to throw a party like this for clients. Like it was a very big hit, especially the fireworks.
Yes, it was beautiful.
That's great. So I take it you liked the view of the fireworks from Mexico Vista.
Oh, it was great.
Fantastic. So then for your wedding day, can you give my listeners a timeline of how it all fit together?
So we got up bright and early, me and my bridesmaids, to get ready. I want to say it's 7 a.m. We had a first look, which started at, I think it was 1 p.m., something like that. We did our photos, which I'm really grateful for, honestly, because we had so many shots that just turned out so beautiful. Very sweet, intimate moment between me and Jose that was photographed. After that, we had our ceremony. We did some more family pics and with the bridal party, the groomsmen, and all of that. And then we went right into the reception.
My morning was a little different. I didn't have to go through obviously all the makeup and stuff, so I kind of just hung out with my friends around the resort, around Disney World. I think the day before was the welcome party. The day before that, I had actually gone to Hollywood Studios with my friends. We were big on keeping apart until the welcome party and until the wedding day, so we kept that tradition. But yeah, I remember getting to the Grand Floridian in my tuxedo, ready to go, and just being, like really excited. And I mean, I definitely teared up once I saw her for the first time, and everything else just kind of went very smoothly after that. We were guided by the photographers, the coordinators. Me and her definitely felt like we wish we could have been out there during the cocktail hour, but obviously, we're the guest of honor, so we were eating.
We had a lot of photos to take.
We had a lot of photos to
I would
take.
recommend any couple really think about getting a first look in beforehand, and even maybe family photos if you can help it, because then you can just kind of enjoy the party with your guests more so.
Definitely. Yeah. So then, because I know a lot of people sometimes balk at the idea of a first look because they want to be traditional or they think that one or the other of them isn't going to react as strongly when they see each other at the altar. How did that work for you guys?
And that was a concern for me. And it's funny because we did elope in January of last year. First and foremost, we just had a small beach ceremony with our parents and my stepkids, and it was a very sweet moment. But I didn't have my big wedding dress. I didn't have that big aha moment, I guess you could call it. So once we had the first look, I mean, we didn't have as much, I guess, nervousness going into it. And it was just a lot easier as far as timeline.
I mean, yeah, that moment was just like I remember my heart drop. I remember I had one of my friends was actually coming out of nowhere wet when I was turned around and waiting, and my friend just shows up and he's like, "Jose, what's going on, man?" And I'm like, "Get out of here! Like, get out of here! Like, shoo, shoo!" And then she walks behind me, taps me on the shoulder, and just heart dropped. I started crying, held her, and just never wanted to let her go.
That's wonderful. So then for each of you, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
For me, it was definitely the ceremony, my dad walking me down the aisle and me seeing Jose at the end of the aisle and hearing the violinist, seeing all my guests stand up and look at me, and I just couldn't stop smiling.
Right now, I can close my eyes and see her in her dress, and my favorite part of the wedding was just her, which how she looked. She looked incredible. It's the easiest snapshot that I can take just by closing my eyes and seeing her like tapping me on the back and her smiling all day, and it was all about her. Going to Disney, everything. It was just beautiful for me. That was my favorite part was
And
seeing that.
I think it's also special that I kind of introduced Jose into the world of Disney, the bubble of Disney, we like to call it. And just getting married there was that much more special.
That's fantastic. So when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
Flowers, flowers, flowers for her. Those are the three.
Yes, I went into wedding planning knowing that I wanted to get as many flowers as I possibly could. The second most important was photography. And then the third, I want to say, was food.
For me, it was guest list and the food and the venue. But I know flowers was the most important to her, so it became the most important to me.
So, Jessica, since that was so important, how did you communicate your vision to your florist?
Well, I made sure before our meetings that I had photographs of what I wanted for the sweetheart table specifically, what I wanted for each table as far as the arrangements were. I did have, because I don't know if all your listeners know, but the Wedding Pavilion does not allow you to have third party vendors. So I did work with the Disney florist team to do just little flower arrangements for the aisle pews, and they turned out wonderful. They were beautiful. And in the ceremony space, you don't really need much. It's just so gorgeous in there, especially after the renovation. And then as far as the reception flowers, I made my best effort to give my florist all of the details of the color scheme, of the types of flowers I wanted, and all of the little decor items that went with it.
Got it. Okay. Then, were there any aspects of the wedding that were less important to you guys where you maybe saved your money or just your effort?
Videographer, probably.
Yes, we decided to cut the videographer completely from our, and it saved us a lot. We just felt like we wouldn't look back on it.
Our memories were enough to remember it.
Right. And we had so many photos, and I actually had QR codes at every table framed so our guests could actually copy the QR code and take photos, and it was in one little app that everyone could view simultaneously during the wedding. So that was kind of nice as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Well, the most important thing that I heavily put my effort on, there was a little bit of a hiccup. So when I received my bouquet and my bridesmaids' flower arrangements, mine just appeared a little smaller than my maid of honors. And I mean, that was quickly addressed, but there were some photos that I didn't have my florals with. So that was pretty upsetting at the time. But again, it was quicked fairly quickly. There was also an issue with the cake as far as design. I did provide Disney with all the photos of what I wanted specifically, and it turned out fine and it turned out pretty, but it wasn't exactly what I envisioned. Now, nobody thinks about that except for the bride. At the end of the day, everyone's just excited to eat cake, and they really did love the flavors.
That's great. Now, was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
I can't think of anything.
I couldn't really think about anything as far as being worried. I mean, I guess the timeline, and it turned out fine.
You know what? The guest list. The guest list is a good one because we were stressing about the guest count. And we originally wanted to be around 90 to 100 people. And we invited most people that were on our list, but at the end of the day, it came out to be the exact amount of people that showed up. Jesse and I were constantly talking that no, everyone's going to make it. It's not that far from where we live, and if we invite 125 people, we'll be on the hook for 120 people. But it ended up working out the way that it was supposed to.
Oh, that's great. Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I probably would have researched some of my third-party vendors just a little bit more because some of them have not worked with Disney. I would say a majority of the third-party vendors that I hired, it went fine. They did a great job, but there were some hiccups during the day that I think maybe was because of the vendors' lack of experience with working with Disney.
And what I would have done is book that welcome party much sooner, because maybe we would have been able to get Italy. But I mean, we still loved Mexico. It was
Yes,
still
Mexico
beautiful.
was great. I have no complaints. I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I think it's just important to be very clear in what you want. Make sure that you have all the information written down as far as what your expectations are for the day and all of those little details of what you want so that you are properly communicating to your wedding coordinator and so they understand what your vision is for that day. Now, of course, budget constraints come into play, but I think it's important to try to get it on the table to see what your options really are. Because Disney weddings is kind of like you need to tell them what you want. They will not just give you the options themselves. And that's kind of how I stumbled on your podcast, Carrie. It really helped me in the wedding process with Disney.
Oh, that's awesome.
Definitely communicate very clearly your budget. That I think is very important because it can get a little out of hand if you're not monitoring that and being careful. There were some quotes that we got where we were just gave me a little anxiety when we were just picking, we want this, and that. And ultimately, you got to focus on what are I like that your question was, what were the three most important aspects? Because if you focus on what's most important, you'll find that you can live without the little mini stuff like uplighting, the horse and carriage transportation, like all those little things that we thought we really needed. Once, we stuck to our budget, we found that it was easy to cut some of these things out to make sure that you're able to stay within it.
And I think that's another great thing about Disney weddings is that they can really tailor anything to your budget. Of course, you might have to cut back on a guest list, you might have to cut back on certain food items, but at the end of the day, they're there to help you and try to make it so that you have your vision and within what you want to spend.
That's great advice. Well, Jose and Jessica, I think you've offered a ton of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it was great, Carrie. I'm so glad I'm on your podcast. I was very thrilled.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.